And welcome and thank you for joining us on the second half of The Factor Uncensored. Now, earlier this week, we had an honest discussion here about seeing young black people involved in all the crime in Miami during spring break, video after video, from murders to vandalism. We want our panel to address it, if there is a problem in the black community, but most importantly, how do we fix it? Solutions. You've seen the video time and time again where Miami was slapped with a lot of violence during the spring break. Tonight, we brought our guests back. We started this conversation earlier this week. They're back addressing this problem. Radio host Claver Kamal Imani, Dr. Ruth Allen Olison, and Waller County Constable Herschel Smith are all here again. So last time we talked, Claver, we were talking about trying to find solutions. We all acknowledge there is an issue that we need to address. We talked about family, we talked about the church, we talked about parenting may be part of the problem. So how do we address it when we see so many young black people involved in crimes like that, where they're attacking and vandalizing a car, committing murder on camera, just shooting each other? It's just mind-blowing and hurtful to see as well. But how do we start addressing this, Claver?
The first thing I think we need to do, first of all, Isaiah, thank you for the invitation, but can we start at the root of the problem?
Go to the root.
Think about what spring break was supposed to be, what it originally started out as. It was supposed to be about college students that were getting away after, let's say, their midterms, or to unload some steam, or to get ready and relax and decompress before they go back to campus to deal with midterms and certainly finals. That's what it was supposed to be at the very beginning. I'm having a hard time believing that a lot of these kids that were down in Miami Beach are college kids. If that's the behavior of our college kids today, I don't want to be around when they're holding the reins of control of this country. If that is the behavior of college kids today, I'm not very sure that the ones that were causing the trouble in Miami Beach are actually enrolled at any university anywhere in the United States. I think a lot of them were outsiders that were causing problems. That doesn't diminish the fact that what you saw in the video images were majority of black kids. And what I started talking about on Monday were 4 institutions that I really think need an MRI or an X-ray and a readjustment, a reattitude about what their role really is. The capital C Church, governance, education, the big education complex, Big Ed, and parenting skills, the role and obligation that parents have in this day and time to be able to direct their child, as the constables say, in the way that they should go, and when they get old, they don't depart. I think we're very far away from that. The church and pastors, especially black pastors in mega churches, should be addressing from the pulpit, from a biblical perspective, the social ills that we're seeing consistently and constantly on an epidemic level, if you will, and the pastors aren't doing that. Number 2, the governance. The idea of our government is actually pushing the anti-biblical ways that made this country great, the anti-constitutional ways that made this country great. Education, the fact that it's no longer education but indoctrination, a decline in outcomes which you can trace back to the actual inception of the Department of Education. The United States government should have no role in education at all. Education is not mentioned in the Constitution at all. And of course, parenting, I believe every black person understands the problems that we have in the black community when it comes to parenting, because most of the times it's just one.
All right, let's bring Dr. Ruth into this. When he talks about the issue about church involvement and not having enough involvement, we know, and I've seen over decades, churches giving, the smart kids scholarships, and because they apply for it. What more can the church do to reach those who may be troubled, who may be in these videos that we're seeing in Miami where they're vandalizing and committing murder before they get to that point?
Yeah, I think we have to get more involved in terms of reaching out. I think too often we are inside the walls of the church. But the church, Jesus said, go and tell, and we also have to go and teach. I'm really moved by the fact that over the past 2 days since we've been here, I listened to a lot of young people, and actually a group of them passed by the church, and I asked them, you know, what is going on with young people? What do you need? Did you see what happened in Florida? What do you think? And so I listened to them, and they said, we need love. And I think they do need love, and I think they do need discipline. And I still, I'm wearing this yellow because a few years ago, there was a young lady who wore a yellow dress in Baltimore, but she had told her son, do not go to this riot. And she saw an image of him. She didn't even see his face, but she was so in tune to her child that she recognized his form. And she went down and beat the hell out of him and took him home. He was supposed to be at school. And so we need some discipline. Now, am I saying we need violence? No, I'm not. But there is a proper role for discipline for young people, and it has to start early, because once a tree gets so big, there's not anything you can do. You got to train them up in the way that they should go, and then they will not depart. So yes, the church needs to be involved, and we need to even do parenting class. How do you parent? We have too many children who are raising children. And so absolutely, there is a role for the church.
Constable Smith, will come back with you after this break. We'll continue this conversation. Don't go anywhere. We're talking about how can we save young black people who may be involved in violence that we've seen in the Miami incident. Stay with us here on The Factor. And welcome back to The Factor, Uncensored, and open and honest conversation tonight. We're still looking for solutions to excessive violence that happens at the hands of some black people. Our panelists are here to continue our discussion. Right now, we're going to go to Constable Herschel Smith from Waller County. When you look at the video and you saw what was happening in Miami, so many young black people involved with vandalism, murders there, your thoughts? What do you see as a solution to save that generation?
First of all, you know, when we sending our children out to out of state, going party, you got to have a courageous conversation with your children. You don't have a courageous conversation with them. I remember my son one night at homecoming at Preview, and I told him, I said, son, I said, stay away from the bad kids. Do not get in the car. He does the opposite. He gets in the car. He end up being in a car where they was swagging, and they had an incident where the car hit the other car, and they had an altercation, and the kid that owned the car said, hey, look, you're gonna give me my shoes. And one thing led to another, and so the kid eventually ran to the campus police chief and told him, said, they robbed me. And of course my son was in the car, and all of these kids end up going to jail that night. You know, and so when we have those courageous conversations, we know what have happened in the past of all the incidents of the big concert that we had here in Houston, and different people traveling, going different places. They need to understand, hey, look, we got to keep our eyes open. We got to be alert. You know, and most of the time when you see a big crowd, especially in our community, a big crowd, they always say there's a problem. That's not always a problem, because I have ran many parties out at Prairie View, and I'm telling you, the students cooperate, no problem. The problem have always been when those perpetrators come from out of town, come to the campus, and they have a whole agenda. Their purpose is totally different in having a good time. And so they have guns, and if you let them in the party without searching and all the stuff that take place, they in a arena where no one is being searched, everybody just walking up, all kinds of guns and things are in that crowd. And so we have to educate our children. Hey, look, look what's happening. People just firing a gun just because they got a gun. Anytime it's hyped and it's lit, kids get out of control.
And Claver, so the question is, how do you reach those who come who are not invited, those who are not in college, but they show up to spring break? How do you reach those? Because you can't just leave them out. Like many of you are saying, they're part of the problem, a big part of the problem. So how do you reach those individuals?
That is a question and a micro solution that needs to be addressed. I think to stop the epidemic of violence that we're seeing in the black community, the #2 cause of death in black America is black on black crime. We have to take a macro approach to it, to those 4 institutions and beyond, and having them, let's say, repent. The biblical definition would be turn 180 degrees. You see that whatever you're doing as far as steering our community, leading our community, it's not working. Go back to the things that did work when blacks and the black community were prospering, and there was much aspiration in the black community. Yeah, they were dealing with Jim Crow. Yeah, they were dealing with segregation and a lot of racism. But the black community was still prospering economically, still prospering academically. The HBCUs were not laughing stocks. They were real institutions of deep academic achievement. If it's not working, and what we're doing right now is not working, go back to what does work.
Dr. Ruth, let's bring you in to wrap it up for us.
I think that we have to have a place for our young people to go. I think we need to look at the model of Israel, where they have conscription, where when you're 18 years old, everyone, boys and girls, young men and women, go into the service. We have some systems already set up. We have the Army, the Marines, the Navy, we have AmeriCorps, we have Job Corps. We have all these things that are set up. If you don't want to go to college,
it's giving them something to do, something constructive and part of society where they're valuable.
Yes,
and some
structure, discipline, and guess what? They need to learn how to use weapons responsibly, because our country is flooded with them, and so good people need to know how to use them too, not just the knuckleheads.
All right. Thank you guys for joining us here on The Factor.